Praveer Sinha joins us, CEO and Managing Director of Tata Power. Mr. Sinha, time and again we've discussed that the Indian power sector is not in a great shape. So today let's not talk about it. It's Christmas time, we are closing the year and let's talk about something better and brighter. But when I have to talk about better and brighter, you'll have to give me a cue because I can't think of anything better and brighter for the power sector.
Thank you, Nikunj, for having me on the show. You're absolutely right that the power sector is under huge stress, and it continues to be, in fact, for last many years, in spite of many of the initiatives which have been taken by the government. It has not yielded the type of results that they were expecting. So let's try to look at it, that what are the three main issues which are impacting the power sector, and who are the big players. The first is the distribution companies, which continue to bleed. They are all in losses. You look at all the 28 states, the various discoms over there. It's a question of how much loss that they are making. Their AT&C losses continues to be high, so that means their theft of electricity continues to be there. They do not have money to pay to the generating companies, and that is why, again, a stress. Last figures that came in was something like 85,000 crores of outstanding to the generating companies. We also find that the whole lot of reforms that they were supposed to carry out has not happened. The SCADA system, the IT system has not been implemented. So I think the first thing that the government needs to put is the distribution reforms needs to be put in place, and that means that the existing discoms, with the way that they are running, they are commercially not viable. They do not have the talent also to run these discoms using the new technologies. Huge amount of technology interventions have to take place, and that means that you need to bring private sector, you need to bring people who have the expertise in running these distribution companies. They can be Indian companies, they can be international companies, but the distribution reforms have to happen. The second aspect is that the regulatory system has to again become very focused and robust. Right now we find that most of the regulatory commissions do not come up with tariff orders on a yearly basis, and the accrued losses, which is sometimes called the regulatory asset, continues to build up and thereby impacting the financial viability of these discoms. So the regulatory commissions have to come with tariff orders every year, effective 1st April, notwithstanding whether the discoms have submitted the ARR or the tariff applications for revision. Secondly is that the way the tariffs are fixed up today, we have a situation whereby there is huge cross subsidy that is being done by industrial and commercial consumers, and the impact of it is that today our industries and commercial services are not competitive globally, and to make them globally it is important that the cross subsidy is reduced. There have been policy directions that it should be plus minus 20%. It has not happened. And the government is within its right to subsidize the low-end consumers, whether they are agriculture consumers or domestic consumers. But whatever the government wants to do, they should do it through a direct benefit transfer. The subsidy should be given directly to the consumer, rather than trying to route it through the discoms and many a times not paying the discoms on time. So the regulatory reforms is something that has to happen, and the decision making has to take place much faster in the regulatory commissions, because whole lot of petitions keeps on getting piled up in all the forums, and I think a quick decision from the regulatory commissions will help in taking the sector forward. The third is the government policies. Government has been coming up with policies, but I think they need to come up with much drastic policies and improvements in that. Today we have large quantum of very old plants which are operating. They are suboptimal. They produce a lot of emissions. These are plants which are 25 years and old, some of them going up to 50 years. I think we need to close down those plants. There are some 250 odd plants, 35,000 megawatt. And if that is removed, then there will be space for the new plants which have not actually being utilized now, and their PLFs are very low. So I think if one has to look at the changes that needs to be brought about in the power sector, one has to look at how all the three players can work together, how quick decisions can be taken, and there has to be a cohesion in terms of the policy and the administrative setup that needs to implement it. I think there is a gap in that, and they need to do it sooner than later. Then only we'll see the real benefit of the reforms that is happening or will happen in the power sector.
To be very practical here, Mr. Sinha, the three things which you mentioned, they will not be implemented. Let's look at the practical aspect here. Little bit of tinkering there, little bit of tinkering there. If at all, what we both are certain of is the fact that the states right now, after the drop in GST, they are not even getting their share of revenue from the center, which means the financial situation for states is only going to become bad to worse. So then what happens to DISCOMs and what happens to power? I mean, are we looking at a situation where DISCOMs will not be able to pay money at all to power companies? Will 2020 be terrible than 2019? Because frankly, the economics at the state level will not improve.
I think there is a certain amount of appreciation of the challenges which the power sector is facing. I am told that the government is coming up with a revised tariff policy which should come within next 1 month time. The government is also coming with a new set of incentives which will be provided to the state DISCOMs, but those are putting huge amount of condition precedents, unlike earlier times when they used to give the subsidy and they used to give the grant, but there were conditions subsequent whereby the improvements were to be brought in. Now they are realizing that many a times what they promise, the state DISCOMs, they are not able to deliver. So they are now putting this as a condition precedent, and they are insisting that the reform, whether it is privatization or franchisee or multiple supply, has to happen. Because this bailout package that has been happening to the DISCOMs for last, I would say 15 to 17 years is not yielding any results. And until and unless they take drastic action to privatize, to go for franchisee, it would be very, very difficult for really the power sector to improve. So I don't think there is any option left but to go for hard decisions. And I'm sure that the government of India and the state DISCOMs put together will come up with an action plan to sustain this sector. Otherwise, whether we talk of the conventional generation, we talk of the renewable, nothing will happen. And I don't think such a situation can be allowed to continue.
I'm going to move forward and talk about Tata Power. Your balance sheet right now is not completely delevered. You've tried to reboot Tata Power in the past. The Mundra issue is getting settled. The global acquisitions like Bhumi, they are in the place now. How will 2020 operationally be different for Tata Power? A lot of Tata group of companies right now have consolidated. Some have sold non-core assets. Some have looked at demerging non-core assets. Like for example, Tata Chemical is merging the food business into Tata Global. Indian Hotel is trying to get rid of the debt. What would be the main punchline for Tata Power for 2020?
See, Tata Power, we started the deleveraging and the divestment process nearly 1.5 years back. We started with Tata Communication, Panaton, and then the defense business. And now we are in the process of divesting our international assets. So we have definitely looked at selling our South Africa asset. We are in the process of also selling our asset in Zambia. We are looking at divesting some of our other investments, including looking at shipping and some of the coal companies. So what we are looking at is that in the next 1 year, we'll get something like $1 billion, about 7,000 crores of divestment money will come. And that will be used for deleveraging, for repaying our debt, and making our balance sheet much stronger. Apart from this, we are also looking at how we structure some of our businesses. We have looked at a renewable business, which is our growth engine, but we do not want to unnecessarily again add too much of capital into these projects. So some sort of structures we are looking at it, and those structures will help us to again deleverage, take away our existing debt from these investments that we have made. We right now have nearly 3,000 megawatt of renewable projects. We have a debt of about 13,000 crores. So many of these actions will happen in 2020, and we are very conscious of the fact that this needs to be done on priority, and you would find that in next 12 to 18 months, most of these will get completed, and we will have a very strong balance sheet and a very strong performance from Tata Power.
On one more aspect, which is that do you expect that in 2020, any of the state boards would be in a position to renegotiate the tariffs? I mean, do you think that kind of a reform at individual state levels would be at play, or state elections will ensure that Hindustan mein bijli ka daam zyada nahi badhega?
See, I think one is that the PPAs are sacrosanct. I think at various forums, whether it is in the state high courts or APTEL or Supreme Court, it has been held that the PPAs cannot be renegotiated once a bidding process has been done and the tariff has been adopted by the Regulatory Commission. Then you cannot reopen these PPAs. The second aspect is that most of the states will have to revise tariff. I don't think they can keep on putting the issue under the carpet and not revise tariffs and thereby keep on making more losses in the distribution companies. So I think most of the states' elections are over. This is a time when they need to consolidate and make some of these changes which will sustain the sector in the future. Otherwise, it will be very, very difficult for this sector to grow. We have seen that how the consumption of electricity has gone down in last 4 months, 4 consecutive months, the consumption has gone down, the generation has gone down. On average, in this financial year from April onwards, there's a marginal increase in generation and consumption. So I think the sector has to grow, and if the country is looking at the type of growth numbers that we have been seeing, I think the power sector will play a very, very important and critical role in the growth of the country.
That note, thank you for taking time out and joining in, giving us a sense as to what exactly is the state of affairs when it comes to the power sector as well as for Tata Power in specific.